Former attorney sentenced to over 7 years for defrauding clients. The former high-profile attorney, previously known for his appearances on a reality television show, was sentenced to 7 years and 3 months in federal prison on Tuesday for misappropriating millions of dollars from clients over the course of more than a decade. The sentencing took place in a Los Angeles courtroom, where U.S. District Judge Josephine L. Staten also ordered the defendant to pay $2.3 million in restitution and a $35,000 fine. The attorney, formerly affiliated with the now-defunct Girardi Keys law firm, had been convicted in 2023 of several counts of wire fraud. Prosecutors said he diverted funds intended for clients, many of whom were involved in personal injury and wrongful death cases, for personal and unauthorized use. According to the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Central District of California, the defendant misled clients with false information about settlement payouts, claiming that payments were delayed due to taxes, legal formalities, or other supposed obligations. In reality, those delays were fabricated, officials said. This case is a grave example of betrayal of trust, U.S. Attorney Bilal Isaili said in a statement. The victims were vulnerable and deserved representation, not deception. A former accountant for the law firm, who was tried alongside the attorney, pleaded guilty and was sentenced to 10 years in prison. Another former firm associate is scheduled to face trial next month on related charges. The attorney is also known for his involvement in a major environmental case in the 1990s, which later inspired a well-known feature film. His legal reputation was long associated with consumer advocacy before the allegations and subsequent legal proceedings. The defendant's estranged spouse, a television personality, has denied involvement in or prior knowledge of any financial misconduct. She was previously dismissed from a civil suit related to the case and is currently focused on professional engagements abroad. Due to health concerns raised during the legal proceedings, the defendant had been residing in an assisted care facility. However, a court ruled in 2023 that he was competent to stand trial. He is required to report to federal authorities by July 17. The fall of Empire Street. The last walk. The first sound he noticed was the hush of the courtroom. The murmur of journalists, the shuffle of shoes, the occasional cough. Everything had the quality of being suspended in time. Thomas G. Whittaker, once known across America as a fearsome litigator and beloved television fixture, stood at the defense table in his signature navy blue suit. It hung awkwardly now on his thinner frame. He was 74. Judge Josephine L. Staten adjusted her glasses and looked at him not with disdain, but with the flat professionalism of a surgeon. Behind her, the seal of the U.S. District Court gleamed in gold. "I have reviewed the facts, the testimony, and the impact statements," she said. "And while the defendant's age and health condition have been duly considered, they do not erase the sustained and systematic abuse of fiduciary responsibility committed over more than a decade." Thomas closed his eyes briefly. He already knew the sentence. "Mr. Whittaker is hereby sentenced to 87 months in federal prison. You are ordered to pay restitution in the amount of $2.3 million and a fine of $35,000. The gavel struck. Outside, a summer sun illuminated the federal building in Los Angeles. But inside, the former king of Empire Street began the long walk down. Before the curtain fell, Thomas's office had once been perched high above Wilshire Boulevard, wrapped in Italian glass and hung with the trappings of victory, framed headlines, autographed memorabilia, even an Emmy for legal commentary during a high-profile trial in 2004. A decade ago, you couldn't walk 10 feet in Les legal circles without hearing his name. He had been the star of Defending the Underdog, a reality television series that paired real litigation with a flair for melodrama. For a while, the ratings soared. The public loved watching a smart, silver-haired attorney fight oil companies and insurance giants on behalf of widows and burn victims. But behind the flashbulbs and carefully rehearsed sound bites, a different narrative simmered, one buried in red ink and moral corrosion. It had begun, as these things do, with a delay. A wrongful death suit involving a trucker's family had settled for $3 million. The check arrived, but Thomas delayed the disbursement. He told the family that legal taxes were in flux and there were international wire complications. In truth, he had used a portion of their settlement to plug holes in his firm's payroll. A bonus had been due to his TV production partner. Another check was needed for a lavish retreat in Aspen. Once the first deception worked, more followed. Over the years, millions of dollars meant for clients slipped into accounts that funded Bentleys, ski lodges, and marble countertops, always with the plan to replace it soon, always with the belief that one last case would fix everything. But the wins became rarer. The firm, Girardi Keys, began to crumble under audits and whisper campaigns. By the time Thomas's partner, the firm's senior accountant, was arrested in 2022, the house of cards had already fallen. The victims. Angela Reyes remembered the day she got the call. Her husband Diego had died in a scaffolding collapse in 2015. It took years for her to find the courage to file a civil suit. A friend referred her to Whitaker, praising his reputation for empathy. He had looked her in the eye and told her, "We're going to get you justice." The case settled in 2019. Thomas had called with the good news, $2.1 million minus fees, but the check never came. At first, he said there were IRS reviews, then medical liens, then he just stopped returning her calls. Angela, a single mother of 3, never saw a dime. She sat in the courtroom during sentencing, gripping a worn photograph of Diego. When Thomas passed by, she didn't say anything, just watched. The betrayal had stopped feeling sharp years ago. Now it was just cold. The spouse, Alina Whitaker, formerly Alina Cara, reality star and singer of minor repute, watched from abroad. She had long separated herself from Thomas's legal orbit, publicly and legally. Their divorce was messier than tabloids knew. Her lawyers had presented evidence that Thomas used marital funds to cover legal debts and misrepresented the firm's finances to her during their separation. She won the battle to be dismissed from the civil case. In a brief statement to reporters outside an event in Milan, she said, "I am focusing on my work and healing. I did not know. I would never have allowed it." And many believed her. After all, how could anyone predict that their husband, a man once praised by senators for his environmental advocacy, would become a symbol of white-collar betrayal? The betrayal within. Among the most haunting voices at the trial was that of Daniel Ross, once a junior associate at Girardi Keys. Ross had idolized Thomas. "He made me believe that you could be both brilliant and good," he said during testimony. He recounted the first time he noticed discrepancies in client ledgers, how he brought them up and was told to let the senior accountants handle it. Eventually, he stopped asking questions. "I should have known," he told the court. "I did know." Ross wasn't on trial, but the shame clung to him like a wet coat. He now taught ethics at a community college and said he often opened his first lecture with the story of his disillusionment. Assisted living and legal fiction. During the pre-trial hearings, Thomas's lawyers presented extensive documentation regarding his declining health, neurological evaluations, cardiac concerns, a report from an assisted living facility in Santa Monica where Thomas had been residing since late 2021. But a court-appointed panel ruled that, while aging and infirm, he remained mentally competent. Thomas had protested little. Somewhere, perhaps, he saw it as inevitable. What disturbed observers more than his silence was his occasional humor. When the judge asked if he understood the charges, he responded, "I may have forgotten a few birthdays, Your Honor, but I remember that part." The joke didn't land. The environmental case. Back in the 1990s, When Thomas was still lionized as a modern-day Clarence Darrow, he had helped win a landmark environmental lawsuit against a chemical company responsible for groundwater poisoning in Northern California. The case inspired a Hollywood film, one that won awards and catapulted his name into American folklore. Ironically, it was this early triumph, this defining narrative of justice, that had cemented his mythos. For years, it allowed him to shield his actions behind a curtain of past good. But the victims of his fraud didn't care about the movie. They cared about rent, hospital bills, and broken promises.